Hey guys, I'm starting a new video concept today called 15-minute fundamentals. And in this one, I'm going to talk about the fundamentals of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In kind of unique topics for each video. So this is focused more on kind of interesting aspects that you come across when playing the game. No matter what deck you're playing, these are going to apply to you, and really to become a better player, understanding the fundamentals is going to go a long way. So in this series, I'm going to talk about things like turn player priority and building big chain links, chain blocking, damage step, end phase resolution of effects, missing timing, all these like terminologies that you hear while playing, or maybe your opponent says, oh no, you can't do that, you're gonna miss timing or whatever. I'm gonna kind of explain to you what they actually mean, what's going on within the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh, and how you can use these things to your advantage no matter what deck you're playing. I'm gonna try to give examples. I'm going to try to cover it all in about 15 minutes or less per concept. Okay, so in this one, this is going to be the kickoff to the series. We are going to talk about turn player priority, what that means, and how to use it to your advantage, and just go from there. And hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'd be interested to hear any other topics that come to your mind when you're like, I don't know what this means. Leave them in the comments below, and I will consider them as part of the series and kind of build a presentation around that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with turn player priority. What is turn player priority? That means in an open game state, the turn player has the priority, is given priority to make the first action. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump on over here actually, and we're gonna basically talk about what an open game state is now, because if we define it as in an open game state the turn player has priority to make the first action, well, we have to first figure out what an open game state is. And really the first place that you come across an open game state is the start of every phase. In draw phase, in standby phase, in main phase. Once you enter that phase, you are in an open game state, and that means when you enter the phase, the only player that can do something is the turn player. So in our examples, we're gonna assume you are the turn player and your opponent is the non-turn player. And by turn player, just in case, it means it's your turn, okay? You've drawn for turn. That means in every phase, you have the priority to make the first action. What are the actions that are allowed? The first action is to pass priority, and that means essentially leave the phase. You say, I am ready to leave this phase. I have nothing I want to do here, because all of the other options are all the things you can possibly do. So if you don't want to do anything during that phase, you're ready to leave the phase. And we see this all the time when you hear someone say, okay, yeah, draw standby main. What that's essentially saying is, I'm passing priority in the draw phase and I'm passing priority in the standby phase to you. I don't want to activate anything. I'm ready to go to the main phase. So that's essentially what's going on, and this happens every game, okay? But say you want to do something. Your options are to summon a monster, whether that's a normal summon or a special summon that is not in effect, that doesn't start a chain, like Cyber Dragon, Catch-Tier Fenrir, stuff like that. You can set a card, or you can activate a card or effect, okay? And we're thinking like, activate a normal spell, activate a quick play spell, flip up already set trap card. And those are the options for first action. Now let's continue on really quick with the blue line of thought here, where you pass priority, and that means it passes on to the non-turn player, which is your opponent. And now they have two options. Let's say we pass priority. Hey, draw phase, I got nothing. I pass priority to you. Are we good to go into standby phase? Well, your opponent, the non-turn player, can say, yep, I pass priority, standby phase is good. Or they can activate a card or effect. They obviously cannot normal summon or special summon without an effect, or set a card during your turn. So these are the only two options. Now, if they also pass priority, then okay, great. End phase, start of next phase, and we jump all the way back to the beginning again for whatever the next phase is. So if we went to draw phase, pass priority, great. Non-turn player, pass priority, great. All right, end of the draw phase, start of the standby phase. Now we do it all over again. And this really happens every single phase that we go through. It's just not always spoken. It's not always communicated. And it's actually kind of good to get used to. It seems like a lot of communication, but it's good to actually try to communicate these things, because that's where a lot of conflict can come up. Because, hey, like, I actually wanted to activate something here. Well, if you communicate, yeah, I'm good to leave the phase, then there's no, confusion, and it's better for the game, okay? Anyway, let's talk about what happens when we want to do something. We summon or set or activate an effect, or we even pass priority and our opponent wants to do something. Say, oh yeah, I have nothing in draw phase, and our opponent's like, yeah, actually draw phase, I'm going to flip this card. Okay, now great. We have something to respond to. Now we enter what's called the response window. Okay, and in the response window, you can activate cards or quick effects only. We cannot summon or set in the response window. Like, this is a kind of chance to respond. Say our opponent flips up Welcome Labyrinth. We say draw phase, I got nothing. We go to standby, and our opponent's like, no, draw phase, I'm going to activate Welcome Labyrinth. Now we're in the response window, and now either player can activate cards or effects. And the person that's given priority to actually activate those effects is not necessarily the turn player, but it's the responding player. It's whoever did not activate the effect in the first place. So if our opponent flips Welcome Labyrinth in draw phase, then we have the first priority to activate something in response. Okay, so we can Ash, for example. Or we can pass priority again in the response window, and now our opponent who activated the Welcome Labyrinth in the first place is free to flip up another card or activate another quick effect. And this keeps going back and forth until both players have nothing more to activate in the response window. So basically, flip Welcome Labyrinth, Ash, no. Flip Big Welcome, Ash, no. Okay, great. That means essentially we have nothing to respond to any of these effects with. So the responding player, which is us, we are going to pass priority here. And then the activating player, once they're done doing anything they want to do, they end up passing priority as well. All of the cards that we've activated in the first place are going to resolve. That kind of concludes the response window. Like, all of the effects that have been activated resolve, and we're good to go. Now the next window we enter, we don't go back into an open game state, we actually go into what's called the resolution window, okay? And the resolution window basically allows for cards to be activated that have to do with either, something has just happened. Say our opponent flipped up Jar of Greed, which says draw one card. We have nothing in response, we're not going to Ash that, but on resolution we can draw in Lockbird. So our opponent cannot draw anymore for the rest of the turn. And that's great, right? So that's essentially what the resolution window is a new window to activate anything that would happen on resolution. And not only can you activate stuff that, triggers on resolution, like Droll, but you can also activate quick effects. And this really comes in when we think about Access Code Talker. So Access Code Talker, when it's summoned, it can target a link monster in the graveyard to gain a whole bunch of attacks. So, say you link off Selene and Effect Veiler into Access Code target Selene, gain 3,000 attack, okay? Now, there is a window that, once it gains 3,000 attack, that means the response window has closed. But there's still a resolution window to flip up your trap cards, okay? Or to, chain or activate impermanence. You cannot imperm in the response window. What access code actually says is that the responding player cannot activate anything in the response window, okay? But you can activate things in the resolution window. The other window is still there to activate cards. So what you should typically do if you have an infinite impermanence set on your field and your opponent summons an access code talker, you're going to want to flip that imperm in the resolution window. And what that will do is negate the access code's effects. It will go back down to 2300 and they won't be able to banish link monsters from the graveyard to destroy cards in the field. Now, if the resolution window, in the resolution window, we also both pass priority. And here's what the resolution window looks like. Is very similar to the response window, except the turn player has priority to activate something in resolution. It's kind of like a mini open game state, but it's an open game state only for quick effects. The turn player has the priority to activate something typically. Basically, if we pass priority here when our opponent summons access code, they can just pass priority as well, assuming it's their turn, and then they will have an open game state once again. And that kind of brings us all around full circle. How do we get to open game states? Well, open game states also occur after the resolution window. When both players pass priority, we come all the way back up to the top, and boom, we are at an open game state once again. Okay, so essentially, I know this is a lot and this is a little complicated. Maybe rewatch this video again to kind of figure out what's going on, but let's summarize quickly. At the start of every phase, we have an open game state. The turn player is the only person that can make an action, and their action options are to either pass priority, and which is essentially saying I want to leave the phase, or they can summon, set a card, or activate a card or effect. If they pass priority, our opponent also has the opportunity to activate a card or effect. Now let's say somebody activates a card or effect, or the turn player summons or sets, then we go down into the response window, in which case we keep trading chain links back and forth until we're all set and ready to resolve the chain. Now the chain will resolve, and that brings us to a resolution window where we have once again an opportunity to activate cards or quick effects, specifically on resolution of whatever chain happened above. Whatever the response window just closed, we can respond in resolution with quick effects. Now if nobody has anything to activate there, then boom, we are back to an open game state. And we're going to see a lot of communication, actually, if we think about this, and if I think about examples of, we resolve the response window. Like, let's say within that response window, the turn player summoned a whole bunch of times. Say 5 times, which is relevant for Nibiru. They are often going to ask anything on resolution. Okay, anything here. I have, or say I have like a level 7 monster and a level 3 tuner on the field. Anything here, anything on resolution. They're essentially offering your opponent an opportunity to activate any cards or quick effects now, because if they pass, we are going to go back into an open game state. And in an open game state, the clear next step is to summon a Baronne de Fleur. And obviously, if your opponent has something like Nib, or if they want to activate something, you're going to want to activate it before I summon a Baronne, because then I can negate it. So that's why, when we summon a whole bunch of monsters, we ask our opponent, hey, anything on resolution? Before we re-enter an open game state and the only legal move is for me to summon Baronne, do you want to activate Nib? Do you want to activate, Super Poly? And that's really what the resolution window is. And then we also hear it all the time after a search. We activate reinforcement in the army, search Elemental Hero Stratos. Hey, anything on resolution? You're essentially asking your opponent, do you want to activate Droll Lockbird now? Or are we free to go back into the open game state where I'm allowed to activate another search effect? Because, if you don't activate your Droll now in the resolution window, well then, I'm free to go. And you essentially have lost your opportunity to use that Droll Lockbird. Okay, so that's really where, we hear this a lot in every game communication, but you really don't know. Helps visualize what is actually happening. Okay, now let's look at a couple examples of how we can take advantage of knowing about turn player priority, and that's our topic of the video. If you remember, turn player priority, how can we take advantage of this? Well, let's see. Okay, so here's an example of where you can use turn player priority to your advantage. And typically, turn player priority really comes in clutch when you have cards that your opponent cannot respond to. So essentially, you are eliminating your opponent from being able to activate things in the response window. And here some examples are like kaijus, or things that just tribute your opponent's monsters without starting a chain, like kaijus, lava golem, sphere mode. There's super poly, which says your opponent cannot activate anything in response. And then there's also dark ruler no more, which is another one that takes away your opponent's response window for monster effects only. So let's say this is what's going on in the game. Our opponent has a Cartesia, a Quem, and a Sanctifier, and we know, because we're knowledgeable people of the branded deck, that their goal is probably in the main phase to have Cartesia fuse with the Quem, to summon a Grand Guignol. Grand Guignol is going to dump a Gimmick Puppet, and then Sanctifier is going to special summon the Gimmick Puppet to our field. We really don't want that to happen, so what are we going to do? Well, Cartesia is during the main phase only, and if we take advantage of our knowledge of open game states, when we start a phase, when we go into the main phase, we're in an open game state, and because we are turn player, we are the only ones that can do something. So we have the opportunity to deal with the problem with our first action before our opponent is able to activate a card or effect. So basically, we have to get rid of that Cartesia before making any other actions. And so 3 cards that can really do this efficiently are going to be Kaiju, Super Poly, and Dark Ruler No More. So essentially, if we enter the main phase, then we can either summon a Kaiju to our opponent's field, and we can get rid of the Cartesia, or we can just get rid of the Sanctifier, whichever part of the equation of Gimmick Puppet lock we want to deal with is going to be fine. Or we can Super Poly away the Cartesia and the Quem into a Garura, or we can just slam the Dark Ruler No More down on the board. And essentially, because we have the first action, we can't say, oh yeah, main phase, and our opponent goes, oh, start of main, I'm going to use Cartesia. No. Like, don't get cheated by that. You have the first priority. You are the turn player. You have turn player priority to activate any of these 3 cards in your hand first. And if you use any of them, we are going to stop the whole Gimmick Puppet equation, okay? Now let's look at another example. In this example, let's pretend our opponent has the board that's on our field, okay? Because I want to better show what's going on in the graveyard. Essentially, we know that this Beatrice wants to send that Mayakashi's trap card that we have face up on the field. It wants to send it to the graveyard so they can transaction rollback effect to essentially skip our turn. And they're going to do this in the draw phase, first thing, right? So what do we want to do about it? Well, we want to, in the draw phase, when we enter the draw phase, just like in the main phase, we have turn player priority. This time, we can only pass priority or activate card or effect. We cannot summon or set in the draw phase, right? So in the draw phase, we're going to start off first thing with a Super Poly, and we're going to hit away this Legacia plus the Beatrice into a Muddragon of the Swamp, and that means that that Beatrice cannot activate its effect, because we know it's coming, all right? And this is where kind of knowledge of the meta trends kind of helps you, is you need to know when to take advantage of your turn player priority to deal with problems before your opponent allows them to happen. Okay, so we know transaction rollbacks in the graveyard. We know they want to send that Mayakashi trap as well, so that rollback can just clear our turn out. We want to use that turn player priority to hit them with Super Poly. We want to use it to hit them with Dark Ruler or the Kaijus, but in this case, Beatrice is a quick effect, so they can use it when you pass priority in the draw phase. So you need to not pass priority in the draw phase. You need to use your quick effects to deal with the Beatrice immediately. So that's where Super Poly is gonna come in. And then let's just look at one more example from Yu-Gi-Oh history a little bit. Back when True King of All Calamities was a big deal, kind of like the debut of Virtual World and stuff like that, Double Calamities was a very viable play, and really the only out to double Calamities is to use turn player priority in draw phase to Super Poly them both away for something like Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. And basically, if you were to pass priority at all during the draw phase, your opponent would immediately try to True King of All Calamities you and lock you out of doing, summoning monsters and stuff. But if we take advantage of our turn player priority in the draw phase, what we can essentially do is, in the open game state, activate Super Polymerization as our card effect as turn player, and that means we could jump over here and be able to slam down the Super Poly and discard something, and essentially summon out a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon to our field using both of the True King of all Calamities. And that means we could deal with the problem because we are turn player. And so basically you have to be aware of these kind of situations where having turn player priority really comes in handy, and it can be used to your advantage. Like, this will apply to basically any deck you play. You just have to figure out, where does this knowledge come in? Where can it help me kind of improve my play? Like, are there cases where I'm passing priority and not using my quick effects, or not using my cards in the right order because I could be doing something while I have priority to stop my opponent? So these are things you have to think about for turn player priority. I hope you guys enjoyed this first session, this first lesson, and I will be very excited to release some more in the future. I have another couple ready to go. So hope you guys enjoy. Subscribe if you like this kind of concept. If you want to learn more about the game, just in general, not just about specific decks, I'm here to help you guys out a little bit, and I will catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you later.